Hi, everybody. Welcome to Busy Living Sober with Elizabeth Chan. How is everybody today? It's episode 351, and I'm coming to you from Santa Fe, New Mexico. So exciting. I have so much to talk about. So many things I want to cover today. My main topic is going to be acceptance. So if you're listening, that's our topic today is acceptance. But before we go any further, let's give a shout out to our sponsors. As a busy living sober listener, you know that my mission is to eliminate the shame associated with addiction. And through open and honest communication, we can change that shame. So how does one do that? Well, SoberLink is a remote alcohol monitoring system that allows you to rebuild trust by sharing your recovery with your support network in real time. As a monitored client, you'll have 2 to 3 opportunities a day to prove your sobriety to loved ones through a series of scheduled tests. Once you test, your identity is confirmed and your results are sent instantly to everyone in your support network, making it easier to rebuild trust and to improve communication over time. To learn more about SoberLink, download the resource guide, tips for keeping busy living sober, and to request a $50 promo code off your first device. Visit www.soberlink.com/BLS for busy living sober. So acceptance, it's such a crazy thing, isn't it? Acceptance is wow. It's a huge word. It has a lot, I think to get to acceptance takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of planning. It takes a lot of daily work on yourself and daily work on what you're going through and daily work in realizing I can't be upset about certain things because I just have to accept how they are. And it's been interesting. So I drove, as I told you guys, all I was going to do. I drove from Florida, so southeast Florida, not far from Miami, all the way to Santa Fe, New Mexico. And it was 3 days in the car with my youngest son, Henry, who's 23. And it was one of the most amazing trips for me in my whole life. And you're like, why is that? And it wasn't because I was in a car the whole time, because I can promise you it wasn't that. It was that I got to spend time with my child, and I got to have feelings, and I went through a lot of feelings. A lot of you know that I'm estranged from my oldest son, and a text came through and I could see it. And it said this name on the screen in the car. And I was like, what was that? And I I saw my son's phone. So I opened his phone. I kind of asked him because I don't have his password. And I looked at the text message and I saw a photo, and I was reminded how much it hurts to be estranged from your kids. And it hurts so much. It hurts so much. It hurts so much that I went home. We got to this hotel room outside of Shreveport, Louisiana. It was not the nicest place I've ever stayed, that's for sure. And I got there and I was so sad, and I just started to write and write and write and write and write. And it was just like, what is it? Do you guys ever feel that feeling? Like, what is it worth even living if they don't even care about me? Oh my gosh, when we're going through so much pain, we just want to give up, right? We just want to say, I'm done. I'm giving up. I'm throwing in the towel. This is it. Let's just take it. This game's over. I'm out. Can't take the pain anymore. I want to be done. And I know that I can't be done because I have 2 other kids. I have a husband. I have friends. I have you guys. I have my sober network. I have friends out of I have a lot going on in my life and a lot to be grateful for. But in that moment, I was surely down and out, and I felt really sad and really lost. And it's so funny because nobody talks about empty nesterhood, and nobody talks about estrangement, and nobody talks about these things that go on in our lives, especially as women, and how much it hurts, how many things hurt us to the core. And I have to give a shout out to a friend of mine, one of my listeners, who's also a dear, dear friend. And she said to me the other day, she's like, your podcast has to be longer than 20 minutes. It's too short. So I'm going to make it at least half an hour here. And I had to just say that because I almost forgot to say that. But I want to just tell you that I have been on this journey, with Henry across the country. And I realized that, there's so many gifts in the world that we don't pay attention to. And there's so many things that we can look at that are right outside our door. And there's so much gratitude. I mean, I do want to acknowledge the pain though, when you are feeling those painful feelings of like, oh my God, it hurts so much. I just want to give up. I just want to throw in the towel. I can't do it. And so many people, I'm going to take off my glasses. JF said last week my glasses were distracting. I ran into somebody today, and I'm just going to talk about this really quickly. I ran into this woman today. I was in this awesome coffee shop in Santa Fe that I'd been to last year when I was here. And I was talking to this woman, and she herself is in long-term recovery. And she has a child that's battling this disease. And she is just so lost. And I could feel the pain in her eyes because it's like your baby, right? I mean, when it is a person that you have put your whole entire life and time and energy and all your will into raising kids, it's so hard, right? Because you put all your energy into it. You're like, it's all about your kids being okay. And you worry about them. And when they're little, you're worried, like, are they sleeping through the night? Are they getting enough food? Or are they sick? Oh my gosh, they're sick. What's wrong with them? Did they have a cough? What's wrong with them? And oh my gosh, I'm gonna go to the doctor. And what am I gonna do? Oh my gosh. And I remember, just to talk about something, I was still drinking at this time, but I remember Kent was born and he was little, and he had this horrible cold. And I called the doctor's office and they were like, go ahead and give him a little bit of Benadryl. I don't even remember what it was, Advil, Tylenol, whatever it was. And he was a baby, so it was a dropper. I remember giving it to him. And the next day, the doctor's office said, I called and spoke to the actual pediatrician, said the nurse, and the doctor was like, oh my God, I can't believe you gave it to him. That could have killed him. And I was just like, F you. Like, this is all we do is we try to do the best for our kids. And like, it's so exhausting, right? And that was when he was an infant up until today. Like, you always worry about your kids. And you, at least me, has to be an acceptance of where they are and let it go as much as it hurts. And when that text came in and it was, just, it made me feel so isolated, so not wanted, so unloved, so like worthy. I felt like, what the heck happened along this route that we don't talk to each other anymore. I'm an enemy and I'm a bad person. I guess that happens in life. It's like you try to do everything the best you can in the moment. And it's interesting, isn't it? Having a mom, right? We all have moms and we all have dads out there. It's just a reality of what happens when you're a person. And, we look back at our parents and we're like, did they make that right decision when they were doing this? And I know I harbored a lot of ill will towards my parents because of how I felt that they were wrong with me. But now, as a parent myself of adult children, I can say that it doesn't matter if you try to do your best, because we all do. I think we all try, unless you're like Charles Manson or something and you get up and you want to hurt people. But most people get up and they try to do their very best each and every day. And when you get up in the morning and you try to do really well by your kids, and then something like this happens where they ignore you and they stop talking to you, or they're they're in their addiction and you can't get through to them and they don't hear you, and all you want to do is fix them, and all you want to do is make them better, and all you want to do is send them to a treatment center and have them be better, and you just are like, whatever I need to do to get my kid better, I'm going to do it, right? Anything I can do. I'm going to mortgage my house. I'm going to sell my car. I'll do whatever. If you're going to tell me you're going to fix my kid, I'm going to do it. And you spend all this money and then the kid comes out and it's like they relapse again. And you're like, is this me? Or they stop talking to you, or they just leave your life altogether. And you're just like, what the hell is happening? I know, which I know all of you listening, get up every morning and try to do the best you can do. And then something like this happens and it cuts you to the core. And you're like, what am I going to do? How can I make this better? What can I do? And sometimes you just have to accept. Some days you just have to accept that this is the way it is today. just today, I have to accept that everything is exactly the way that God wants to have it today. That's the thing about getting sober. It's such a spiritual thing. It has nothing to do with the rehab you go to. It doesn't matter what therapist you see. It's where you are in your life and where you are spiritually. And I think that I saw somebody talking today on a podcast actually, and she was saying that the mental health right now is so horrible. And I believe there isn't as much God as there was when I was growing up. That's for sure. I talked to priests and they're like, the attendance is down significantly. People don't go to church anymore. So they don't have any sense of spirituality. And I know that people are like, well, it doesn't have to be in church. You get it. I think for me personally, and I'm going to tell you a story after this, but I think of me personally, because I had that foundation of church when I was a little girl and I was made to go by my mom, that gave me a sense of what God was. As scary and as daunting as it was seeing, the cross and Jesus on the cross with the thorns in his head and the stakes in his hand and the story of how he died. That was like so scary to me, but I had a sense of what God was and I believed in that. And I've always been a believer. And I think that helped me, be able to get through to sobriety because the God thing, because I've had spirituality and God in my life all the time. And it might've been easier for me. And today not as many people, nobody goes to church like they used to. Life's too busy, right? It's too busy. We're too busy. We're too busy playing soccer and t-ball and baseball and lacrosse. And I could go on and on and on. We just want to sleep on Sundays. We just want to sleep because we go, 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 go. But having some form of spirituality, if it's like your walk with your kids and outside, that's your spirituality. You talk about the birds. You don't have any cell phones. That's a huge, huge, huge thing about sobriety is trusting in something bigger than yourself. I'm going to say a couple of things. For one, I was in Santa Fe last year. And don't you like that I'm wearing my cowboy hat? Because I'm in West, so I'm wearing my cowboy hat if you're watching me on YouTube. But what I found interesting is last year I came to Santa Fe as well. And it was smoky because there was huge fires out here because it hadn't rained in so long. And this year it has been raining like crazy here. It hasn't stopped raining. They say, oh my God, it's so crazy how humid and how much rain there's been and everything's green. And I was saying to my son, Henry, because yesterday we drove through this really crazy mountainous area on our way to Taos, and it was a 2-lane road and it was thundering and lightning everywhere. It was like 2 o'clock in the afternoon and our phone is getting National Weather Service to stay off the road, stay off the road, stay off the roads. And the car that I'm driving is very low to the ground. And I was like, oh my God, if there's a flood, we will totally be gone. How are we going to get out of the car? Are we going to open the car? It's so funny because when I was a kid, I wouldn't have given anything. I would have at 20, I'd have been like, who cares? Let's just go. Now at 54, I'm like, oh my God, what's happening? And it's crazy because we made it through. But I wanted to say that because the earth always, Mother Nature is going to take care of her earth no matter what we do, right? We may be here and we may not be here, but this earth will always be here and it will always rejuvenate itself, right? It will do whatever it needs to give it what it needs, right? It's going to make rain, it's going to happen, and we're going to try to screw it up as much as we can. But Mother Nature's like, you keep trying to screw it up, but I got this. You can get out of my way. Trusting that is like a huge thing than Mother Nature. So, so this acceptance and going like, okay, God's bigger than me. Mother Nature's bigger than me. I've got to accept it. These kids are going to make decisions that are bigger than me. I got to accept that. I got to accept that I was really sad and I am really sad. I don't know when that sadness is going to go away, if it ever is, but I'm going to keep walking. And I'm going to keep trudging and I'm going to write out gratitude lists all the time. I have to write out gratitude lists because gratitude lists really help me, and writing my journal. And I have a coach, as you all know, and I just got myself on a schedule. So I get up in the morning, I do my prayer and my meditation, and then I write my journal. and then I go for a walk. And for me, it always has to be outside, and it might be raining too sometimes, but I have to get outside because that is part of feeling God for me, is being outside and seeing the birds and all that. And accept that this is hopefully going to pass one day, and pray that it will pass one day, this time with my son, because it's been so painful. And life without substances and drugs is so beautiful in so many ways, because for better or not worse, I feel my feelings, and they always pass. And it's through the darkness that I find the light. It's through the darkness that I learn to go forward in my life, because nothing ever is what I want it to be exactly, right? Like, it's not going to be this beautiful picture I always want it to be. It's just not. It just isn't. Some days it feels like my life is amazing, and I've had such amazing times. I went actually today and was looking through some old pictures, and I've had some amazing times. And right now it hasn't been so amazing, right? I'm going through challenges in my marriage, as I mentioned last week, the challenge with my son, this empty nester thing. But I'm going to keep walking, and I'm going to keep going through this, and I'm going to keep hugging women that are going through this stuff and tell them that it's going to be okay, because together, if we say it's going to be okay, we can believe it. If we keep talking it up to each other and say, we got this, we're going to be able to do this, it's going to get better. I think that that's what, the whole thing is about AA. It's like two people coming together that can talk to each other. That's my big thing, is like being able to talk to somebody and say, I got you, I'm here for you. And I was listening yesterday to a podcast, and I'm not going to get into politics one way or the other. Okay, you guys, I'm not going to get into what I am or whatever. I am going to tell you that I listened to an amazing podcast. I love Jordan Peterson. If anybody ever listens, my kids all listen to Jordan Peterson. Young people listen to Jordan Peterson. He's a psychiatrist from Canada, and he's got an amazing podcast. And yesterday he had on Bobby Kennedy, who we all know is from the Kennedy family, and he has thrown his ring into the pool of the running for president, on a Democratic ticket. And he was really great. And I was really shocked. And I'm just telling you this because I want you to listen to it, but because go find it. It's on YouTube. It's Jordan Peterson with Robert Kennedy and Jr. And he talks about, which I am just like, I wanted to jump up and down and tell you guys, like, oh my God, you've got to go listen to it. But he talks about how one of the biggest things in his life is 40 years ago, he got sober. He talks about how he had ADHD, and he wasn't diagnosed that because, of course, nobody back in those days, he's 60 something years old, and nobody diagnosed you as ADHD. Nobody diagnosed hardly anybody when I was growing up as ADHD. Today it's like the big buzzword, but he wasn't diagnosed, and he used heroin. He's like, I used heroin. That was my drug of choice. And he also said that he goes to AA still to this day. He's been going for 40 years. And I was so like, oh my God, he's admitting he's a member of the club. Oh my God. I mean, that's what's going on these days. People are coming out and saying that they're alcoholics and they're in recovery. Is that just the best gift of all? We are getting rid of this shame, you guys. It's happening. It's happening layer by layer, onion by peel by onion peel. People are coming out and saying that they're in recovery, that you're not alone, that you are not the only person battling this crazy disease. Look, a guy who's running for the presidency of the United States of America, which we already know, but as I mentioned, I'm not going to say who I like politically, but George Bush was also in sobriety. He talked about it in his book after he was in office. He talks about the most important day of his life was the day when he killed someone and he went into AA. And he quit drinking, and that was the most important day. And I was like, whoa. And now Robert Kennedy like totally goes on for like 15 minutes. You have to watch it. And I'm like, good for him coming out there We need to bring this out, this whole thing of drug addiction and alcoholism out of the darkness and into the light. And not only do we have to bring it out of the darkness and into the light, but we got to change some shit that's going on out there, you guys. Like the recovery in this country is so backwards. I can't even, it makes me want to go, "Grr!" I wrote a letter 2 weeks ago and I sent it out. Some politicians. I don't know if anything's going to happen, but you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to tell you guys my thoughts right now. So you can either turn it off or keep me on, but I'm going to tell you my thoughts on recovery and how we help addicts today in this country and how bad it is. I live in the state of Florida, as you know, and I live in Delray Beach, where it is a revolving door of rehabs. And I went to a meeting because you guys all know I go to meetings, and I went to a meeting the other day, like 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago, maybe now. I don't know how long ago it was because I go to some meetings, but whatever. I went to this meeting, and all the vans pull up from the recovery centers and whatever halfway houses. And it was very interesting to me. So I watched these people get out of these vans, and there's so many people, and there's boys and there's girls, and they're all getting out of these vans, and they're going into this meeting, and they're sitting there, and there's probably 100 people in there. And there's people getting off the van, and they're sitting in this meeting, like holding hands with each other. Like guys and girls, maybe there's girls and boys and boys. I have no idea. But all I saw were guys and girls, and they hold hands. And I know many people that meet while they're in recovery and treatment, and they like start this love affair, which never really works out, because the reality is that when you're in treatment, I believe you should be focused on yourself, not on someone else. Okay. This isn't a dating service. This is not a place you come to meet people. Yes, my husband happens to be in recovery, but I met him when he had 13 years and I had 7 years. And I met him on Match.com. I didn't meet him in the rooms of AA. I'm not going to say whether it's good or bad to meet in AA, but I can tell you this. In the beginning, in the first year, they suggest not getting in a relationship, and I took that suggestion. I can tell you this. When you're first getting sober, you got to focus on you. You can't focus on somebody else. You can't, but it's easy, right? If you go and you focus on somebody else, you're like, oh, I'm paying attention to da-da-da. I'm paying attention to Sam. He's so great. Look at how great he is. I want to be just like him. I want to date him. Oh my God. What can I do for him? Because if I can do something for him, then I don't have to worry about me. I'm focused on him. Or I'm focused on her. I'm focused on them. Whatever you're focused on, instead of on you. While we're in treatment, we need to be focusing on ourselves, not somebody else. That's why, number one, I think we need to have single sex rehabs. Single sex. I think it should just be one sex. And I think that if you're queer, transgender, LGBTQ, you go to your own facility. And if you're straight, you go to your own facility. And it's all women and all men. That's it. That is it. There's no crossing over, because you're there to get better and focus on you. It should be 90 days, no questions asked, 90 days, because it says it takes 90 days to change any habit in your life. So 90 days, you need to go and be in treatment. You're like, oh my God, that's so long. Who's going to pay for it? Well, that's my big question. Who's going to pay for it? Because people are mortgaging their homes. People are selling their cars. They're doing all sorts of things to get their kids better. And what is happening? The rehabs are letting them stay for 14 days, 28 days, and then you got to pay more money. I always thought it was so interesting that when I dropped my ex-husband off at treatment and they said, can we have a check for blah, 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 and what did they get for that check? All we got for that check was, 28 days of knowing that he was safe. That's really all we got. There were no promises there. It's not like you go and you're automatically going to be fixed. No, all you're doing is the loved ones are getting a good night's sleep. So 90 days, no matter what. And you have to work there. You have to work at the rehab. You're like, what do you mean? What do you have to work there? You have to work in the kitchen. You have to work folding, washing sheets. You have to work doing basic necessities, because I think that it's great that we focus when we're in treatment on our disease, right? We focus on our disease and we see therapists, but we can't just do 12 steps and working on recovery and therapy. We also need to learn life skills. A lot of people don't know life skills anymore, unfortunately. Like when I was growing up, we had home ec, right? I went to home ec. They had shop. I went to home ec. That's where I learned to make like eggs in a nest, right? You take the hash browns and you put the egg in the middle of it. I learned that there. I learned how to sew a dress on a sewing machine. I learned how to sew a button. basic little skills that people aren't taught anymore. Writing a check. How do you write a check? They don't teach you that in school anymore. No, no. We're too worried about like if the teachers are into trans or non-trans. Like that's not what nobody talks about. How do you go live in this big world that we have out here? Nobody talks about it. So what do? We have fear. And that's one of the things that Robert Kennedy Jr. said, Bobby Kennedy said on podcast with Jordan. He said, the best thing that Teddy Roosevelt ever said is fear is the worst thing you can ever have. And all the world wants to do is teach us fear. We don't need enough. We don't need any more fear. We all have enough fear. We're all so fucking scared. We turn on the TV. It's like, oh my God, I'm not going to walk outside. I'm not going to go across the street. I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to go there because it's so scary. I'm getting the National Weather Service. Don't do this. It's so scary. I actually made it out. Nothing even happened. I didn't even really see any flooding, but the National Weather Service did their job. We need to not be scared. So while people are in treatment, instead of worrying about like all this stuff, we can't change the past. All we can do is learn from it, right? So if you're a chronic relapser and you learn like, oh my gosh, these are my triggers, you need to write those triggers down. You need to stay away from those triggers for at least a year, right? But while you're in treatment for those 90 days, you can maybe have somebody help you figure out your triggers. You can also have somebody help you out to learn how to write a check. You can have somebody help you learn how to build something, right? While you're there, if it's sewing a dress, if it is baking a cake, if it is building stairs, building a ladder, whatever it is, you've got to learn some life skill. The other life skill I think you should learn while you're in treatment that they don't teach them is how to dress properly for a job interview, how to present yourself at a job interview. What is it like to go for a job interview? Not only that, I think what about working on finances and learning how to balance a checkbook and how much things actually cost? What about that idea while you're in treatment for 90 days? Like not only focus on the recovery, but also focus on the life that this person is walking out of this place. Because what I've seen in the years that I've been sober, and I am a recovery coach, so this cannot, maybe not for everyone, and this is my opinion. But while you are in treatment, you go and you learn about your disease. But how are you going to learn to deal with those bills when you get home from being in treatment? How are you going to learn how to do that and not be scared? Wouldn't it be nice if somebody said to you, all right, you're going to get out of treatment and you're going to have a stack of bills sitting there because during your addiction, you really went havoc on your credit cards and you went havoc on not paying certain things. You didn't pay your child support, whatever it is. And instead they say, okay, if this happens to you, these are what the things that you can do so that you can get out of debt. What if you learned that while you were in your 90-day rehab, rather than just going in and out of meetings, okay, and staying for 14 days, staying for 28 days? Like, no, we need to stay for 90 days. We need to help people. We don't need to just put band-aids on people and say, oh, you are allowed to be sad. It's so sad. We're all can be sad. Okay. Everybody walking on this planet. I think if you're living in America, you have better chances than most people in this world. Okay. Let's just face it. Because if that wasn't so good here, then why are there so many people coming over the border? Okay. It's good here. You have to believe that it's good. Our forefathers came here. This is a good place. You can come here and you can work and you can get a job and you can move up the ranks and you can learn certain things. I always found it interesting, and I'm just going to throw this out there. Wawa, which is a company based in Pennsylvania, it's a convenience store and a gas station. And if you go and you work at Wawa, you learn to work your way up and to be a manager of a store. And then who knows what else? Chick-fil-A, another company where you can't buy a Chick-fil-A unless you've worked there. You have to know what it's like to work in a Chick-fil-A before you buy it. I'm like, that's so awesome. So some guy can go and work in the Chick-fil-A and learn and work his way up and get better. Right? But we never focus on the positive things that can happen. So when we go into these treatment centers, shouldn't we be teaching people skills rather than, I think the 12 steps are amazing, but you need something to go in tandem with that. So when you walk out of that place, you know how to deal with life that's sitting there at the outside of the store. Also family skills. I could go on and on. I'm already at 30 minutes. I know this. I can go on and on about my feelings about this. But we have to change. We have to change things that are going on, and we have the power to do it, right? We have a power to do things. and knowing what's going on, not hiding our head in the sand, acknowledging what's happening. And instead of being fearful, get into action, whatever action that is. Writing your congressman, going and, meeting people and finding out what really is happening with these treatment centers. And, we can accept where we are. What we can't accept is we can't accept that we can't do anything. We can't say, I can't do anything. I'm just going to just sit here and just be like, I can't make a difference. I'm just this one person. I can't make a difference. I try to make a difference every week on this podcast. And someone said to me, it's, what am I doing it for? I'm doing it to help others. I have this gift that God gave me of being able to not be ashamed of my recovery, not being ashamed of who I am, being able to hold my head high and say that we can get through this if we do this together. We need each other. We need each other. We need to learn that we can accept some situations, but we can't accept all of them, and we can do different things to change them. And if that means stopping shopping at certain stores, even though it's convenient, going somewhere else, doing something that's going to make you feel like you're making a difference in your life rather than just following through with this stuff. We can acknowledge the pain we feel. I can acknowledge that I am in so much pain about my son. I can acknowledge that so much. I can acknowledge that it hurts so badly that I sometimes just want to check out, but I can't. I got to keep going. I got to keep fighting, and I need to fight for you guys too. So come on, let's get in this fight together. Let's change some stuff up. What do you say? You want to change some stuff up? If you hear this podcast and you like it, do me a favor, subscribe to my channel and tell your friends about it. Because as I mentioned, we need each other more than we could ever have in our entire lives. That darkness and that COVID stuff that put us all away by ourselves and isolated us and made the fear go up to like 1 billion in our bodies. I mean, half of us feel like we have more stress than ever, more stress than people that were like running from bears. And for what? For what? For Big Pharma to give us a drug to tell us it's going to be okay if you take this drug for the rest of your life. Little do you know the side effects are da 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 da. And instead, just having a real friend and somebody to talk to really makes a difference. Having somebody that you can trust. It's huge. It's huge. So find somebody. If that's somebody, you need it to be me. You can always write to me at elizabeth@elizabethchance.com. And I promise you, I will respond. And you just have to know you're not alone. You are not alone. You do not need to be scared by yourself in a corner. We can get into action. We can come up with a plan that will work for you. Let's do it. Let's do it. Okay. All right. That's enough of me. I hope you enjoyed this week's podcast. Again, if you like it, please subscribe. And you can also get on my mailing list. I'm going to start doing mailings soon. Life is starting to change here for Elizabeth Chance. I'm getting busy living sober. That is for sure. Are you going to get busy living sober too? Let me know. And until next week, take care, be well, and please subscribe to my show. Thanks.